she's feeling great. She's feeling good. I should feel great. So even though I'm nervous, I start to calm down just a little bit. And then we take a turn. It was a lot, y'all. But I started crying. My doctor comforted me. Hello everyone, welcome back to House of Cramel and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of my C-section experience. So stay tuned if you want to hear all about it. Alright, so because I have a lot of information to cover, I'm going to try to keep each section that I talk through concise, kind of bullet style. I have a tendency to get a bit wordy and that may happen, I don't know. But let's go ahead and get into it. So, why did I have to have a C-section in the first place? The long and short of it is my baby was breech. Camden was in the breech position. I found out he was breech at 35 weeks. We monitored every week after that to see if he would turn. He did not ever decide to turn, and I ended up delivering via C-section. Period. Next, what type of C-section did I have? So, you know, there's emergency C-sections and there's scheduled C-sections. There's elected C-sections. I had a scheduled C-section, meaning, yeah, it was scheduled. It was planned. But my C-section, I wouldn't consider it elected because I wouldn't have elected to have a C-section. I would say an elected C-section is from somebody that knew from the bat that this is the way they wanted to deliver their baby. And you do have that choice if you have the luxury of having that choice. Just because your C-section is scheduled, doesn't mean you necessarily elected to have a C-section. I full on when I got pregnant, I full on expected to have a vaginal birth. That is the way I delivered my first baby, so I didn't really think that I would have to deliver my second baby C-section. But that is the situation we ended up in because my baby was breech. And if you're wondering, no, I did not. Doctors do not deliver babies breech, at least not where I live. I have heard some stories and you know, read and heard a couple stories because, I mean, immediately when you find out you have to do that, you start to listen to stories and other people's experiences of, you know, delivering a breech baby. Most were in an emergency capacity. Others were, somehow she got the doctor to deliver her baby breech. So, yeah, but no, my doctor was not willing to do that. So I say that to say, in today's medical world, delivering a baby breech via vaginal birth is not widely practiced. Most younger modern doctors will not do it and are only really trained to do so if it's an emergency situation. And even still, I'm pretty sure they'll try to do a C-section if they know that the baby is breech already before, you know, the actual pushing or whatever. But you have to deliver via C-section. Is thought to be safer for mommy and baby, and that is the route you want to take. You want a healthy baby, period, at the end of all of this. So, and I did, also in case you want to know, I did ask my doctor if there is a world where I could deliver my baby vaginally, just because I wanted to do it that way. And I had already been successful that way once before. But she informed me that she would in fact lose her license if she did that. So we don't want that, and we also want to be safe. So, but I did ask the question of my doctor. All right, so yes, I asked the question. Also next, would I have chosen to have one? I think I kind of already said no to that. The reasons I wouldn't choose to have a C-section is one, it's major surgery, and people don't usually choose to have major surgery, I mean, unless it's cosmetic, unless they have to, and that's the situation I was in. Secondly, with major surgery comes a major recovery. You absolutely will and can recover just fine from a C-section, but it wasn't my preference. The biggest reason it wasn't my preference is because I have a 3-year-old son. If you're not new to my channel, you know Buki. So, you know, that's our first love child. That's my baby. So I wanted to be able to care for him and also just be here for him in this full capacity as I could through this transition. Sometimes it could be difficult for children when a second baby comes into the house. I didn't really know what that looked like. It also just broke my heart that I couldn't be there to like be the best parent I could be coming home. Like, it just bothered me so much. So that was the second reason why I really wouldn't have chosen to have a C-section. But I had some great support, and just so you know, Buki did and is doing just fine transitioning, and I'm doing great too. So, but that was the reason why, that's one of the bigger reasons why I wouldn't have elected to do it. Also, and I guess lastly, I wouldn't have chosen to do it just because I had never had any type of major surgery before. I haven't had any huge procedures. So I didn't have any a point of view on what a recovery of that capacity looked like. And it was scary, you know? So let's just be real, it was a little scary. Now I am here today and I can talk about it, and clearly everything went well, but just being a first timer for any procedure of that magnitude is scary, and the unknown is scary, and just kind of just the unknown of it all. And just not knowing was emotionally taxing for me. Not knowing how I would be able to show up for my son or myself or even my husband was emotionally taxing. And just thinking about my husband having to do all the things, it was a lot. So there was a lot that went through my mind. But that being said, because I knew that there would be a recovery aspect involved, I was very motivated to do what I needed to do to get better and make sure I didn't have any setbacks or possibly help recovery go faster. A blanket statement that I always heard from my doctor and most other people is that the first 2 weeks are the toughest, and after the first 2 weeks you're pretty good. For me, and I'll talk about this a little bit later in a video, the first week was the toughest, and in my second week I started to feel a bit better. So I'll get into more detail about that in a moment. But the good news is you can do it. You will be okay. Even if you don't have a whole lot of support, you will be fine. And I just want to kind of reiterate that you're not alone if you feel like it's a scary thought, or you're not alone if you feel overwhelmed at the thought of having a C-section and having to recover. Those are like two big things in themselves, but you can do it and you will be okay. Many people told me that as well, so it's hard to hear and listen to when you're in the thick of it, but I'm also here to tell you that it is true. So still, would I choose it? No, but it did result in the healthy delivering of my Camden and myself after. And yeah, what else could you ask for? Because that is the goal at the end of the day. Next, what happened during my delivery? So you saw a little bit of it in the birth vlog. You saw a lot of highlights. There are some things that you didn't see, and there's some things that I mentioned that I would talk about in this video. So let's get into that. First, and I'm probably gonna have to hold my phone for this one because I don't want to miss anything. First, you know, we got to the hospital, whatever. We got there and my procedure was pushed back or up. No, back, because back is later, up is sooner. I always get mixed up with that, even at work. But my procedure started late because there was someone in front of me also getting a C-section, and there was some things that happened with that person, and our resources needed to be allocated towards that situation prior to my procedure. So it started late. Now keep in mind, I haven't eaten all day, but I was actually okay. I was able to drink some Gatorade 3 hours before I thought I would be able to, thought my procedure would be happening. But quite honestly, I wasn't even thinking about food after that. I maybe thought about food a little bit at first in the morning, but drinking water and having that Gatorade really took the edge off for me. And once I got to the hospital, it was really just about getting ready, getting it done. I was not thinking about food like that. I was more worried about my husband eating than me. And so yeah, that'll just, you won't be thinking about eating a ton, at least not in the time span that I did. So my procedure ended up starting at about 1:30. It was originally scheduled for 12 o'clock or 12:30, 12 o'clock I want to say. Yeah, so I went an hour and a half longer than I anticipated. But so just keep in mind, once I woke up that morning, I hadn't eaten all morning. So that, if that gives you a reference of time of how long it had been since I'd eaten. Once they were ready to situate me, they came to get me. The nurses gave me some digestive medicines. There is a lot around the digestive world that is mentioned when you're having a C-section. This could also be common with some type of other surgery, but I think it's specifically because they're of the area they're cutting and things happen. So I'll talk a bit more about that as I go through this. But you'll hear a lot about like gastro things, digestive things that they try to prevent or help along. So I was given Pepsid via IV and some other medicine. I don't know what it was called, but it was to help something in my esophagus, like acids or something like that, I guess, because I would be laying down, and I'm not sure, but it was something along the digestive prevention tract as well. So those were two things I was given before surgery, before I even walked into the OR. For those of y'all, because I'm probably going to say OR more than once, if you don't know what OR means, it means operating room. The nurses also told me and my husband that he would be able to come in about 10 to 15 minutes after I went in. That during this time they would be administering the anesthesia and getting me all set up, you know, because they put a curtain in front of you so you don't see them doing the procedure. I can't even imagine what that, it freaked me out when I saw the videos of what I did see. But yeah, so they're doing all of that setup. So we're feeling good. My husband's feeling good. I'm feeling a little nervous, but I'm feeling good. And they give me the medicine. Oh yeah, so I think the throat stuff, the stuff I took via mouth was also to help like acids in my throat or something like that. Like I said, it was something digestive. So yeah, so I get up and I walk into the OR. My husband stays back. They had already given him his, like, they call it a bunny suit, but the suit he has to wear to go into the operating room or the OR and everything, and his hair mask or whatever, and mask. Whew, walking in there was a bit overwhelming. When my baby, well, my first baby, got ear tubes, and I was allowed to go in with him so that he would be more comfortable, especially when they were about to do the anesthesia. It's overwhelming. It's so bright and it's overwhelming. It's so big. There's so many things in there. And that was the case for where I went to. I just saw all this stuff, and the stretcher is kind of high too, and just it's overwhelming. And so I kind of immediately stopped focusing on all of that because it was visually overwhelming for me, and I was already starting to get even more nervous because I was like, oh my god, this is about to happen. So yeah, walking in, they led me to the table. Like I said, it was kind of high, so I had to like step up onto this higher table, and so I could lay down and everything. So before I laid down, there was, let me see, I know it was almost about 6 people in there. So it's 2 of my doctors, a nurse, anesthesiologist, and maybe 2 other people. There may have even been more in there because there had to be people for the baby, people for me, anesthesiologists, you know that. So, but I think I remember about 6 or 7 people may have been in there. Got on the table, sat down, anesthesiologist is getting set up. My doctors walk in. You know, she's feeling great. She's in an awesome mood. She's like, let's do this. She turns on some music. That's something I didn't expect. She turned on music, and in case you're wondering what a great operated like surgery soundtrack is, it's Maxwell, because that's what she turned on. Honestly, it probably just depends on the person, but I was like, okay, this is, she's feeling great, she's feeling good, I should feel great. So even though I'm nervous, I start to calm down just a little bit, and then we take a turn. So I get set up to receive my anesthesia. I received 2 types of anesthesia. The first, well, they kind of sound the same, but I got an epidural and a spinal anesthesia. They were 2 separate ones, and I got them both. Whew. So I get in, if you've ever had an epidural before, you have to get in a really weird position. You have to kind of poke your back out. You basically have really bad posture. It's so that you poke your back out so that you're in an optimal position for the anesthesiologist to, you know, do what they need to do. It's not a comfortable position. It was extremely uncomfortable for me because of how high the table was, where the doctor was, and also I'll talk about for how long I had to do it. This was only supposed to take about 10 minutes. The first time I ever had an epidural prior to this, during my son's birth, it went off without a hitch. It may have only taken 5 minutes. And I didn't feel nothing. I didn't feel anything. So I was nervous about not having that experience again, because I was like, this is just too good to be true, because I hear so many women talk about how bad their epidural experiences have been. Like, some women just don't have a good one. Some women feel it. Some women, it's very painful. And some women just have bad experiences after. So I was kind of nervous about that. And I had every reason to be nervous. So, like I said, I get into this weird slouched over position so he can administer it. He does do a local anesthesia first, because, you know, he don't want you to feel the rest of the stuff. They're putting things in your spine. That's already not comfortable. But the initial poke is not comfortable either. Like, so he pokes me, it does not feel good, it hurts. And it feels like he's hitting something. And I thought after that, like, okay, he's almost done. And then he wasn't done. And I just kept hearing him, he was saying, like, he kept asking for another needle, or did they have this type of thing, or did they have that type of thing? And so now this is starting to go on longer than I anticipated. And I'm like, I'm thinking, is something wrong? At this point, my doctor hasn't talked to me yet. She was speaking with the assistant physician or surgeon that was going to be doing the procedure as well, who I met already before I came in. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting uncomfortable. This poking in my back is becoming excessive, and it hurts. And he keep asking for different needles. So he like keep getting another package or another package. He keeps reopening it. And then I hear him say, yeah, the needle, it keeps bending. And I'm like, bending on what? What's going on? So then after what was probably about 20 minutes of this man poking me in my back, trying to get it right or finish it, a nurse comes over, and she's like, she encourages me to get deeper into this very uncomfortable position, and she stands in front of me, and they were saying I needed something to hold on to. Like, they didn't say that, but I felt like I needed something to hold on to be able to hold the position better. And it was hard to hold on to the people in front of me because they were lower, and I was sitting up on like this stretcher, which was kind of high. So trying to be supported by them and hold this crunched position while he's poking needles in my back that I can feel got to be extremely uncomfortable and painful, might I add. Like I said, he's poking needles in my back. So after a while of it not working, and you know, the nurse had come over, my doctor came over, and she was like, what is going on? Like, why is this taking so long? And that's when it kind of confirmed for me that something wasn't, and I still didn't think it was all the way wrong at that point in time, but that's when I kind of started to realize something wasn't right. This wasn't like normal or whatever. So he keeps trying. My doctor has now taken the place of the nurse, of, you know, playing that supporting role of trying to help me help the anesthesiologist, and it's just not working. So finally, we're probably 35 minutes into this, maybe even 40 minutes into trying to administer the anesthesia several times. The anesthesiologist asked for another anesthesiologist to come up to help. And I was like, oh my God, like, we're still not done? I remember asking a couple times, like, do I have to do this again? Because it hurt that bad. I was that uncomfortable, and I just wanted this part to be over so much. Like, it felt like forever to me. And keep in mind also, my husband was told that he would be able to come into the OR in 10 to 15 minutes. And here, I know it's been well over 10 minutes. So my doctor was talking me through it. They had called another anesthesiologist up, and finally, that anesthesiologist was able to do what needed to be done. Apparently, I think, I don't really know what the problem was. From what, I did ask some questions. I did ask, like, what was going on. I think it was like a 50-50 thing, because my doctor did say sometimes you just need a different set of hands. And I don't think she wanted to insult the anesthesiologist, but also she didn't seem to have the most confidence in him, or she felt like he wasn't doing what he needed to do. But also, she did explain that sometimes it is genetic and has to do with your spine. So for me, I feel like maybe it was 50-50. Because I have had an epidural before. I've never had a spinal anesthesia before, because it was in a different place in my back. So I don't know. But the second anesthesiologist was able to do it with, like, in the time frame that was needed. And thank God, after that nightmare was over, things went smoothly. And to add to more of, like, this doesn't happen all the time, so I don't think this is going to happen to you if you happen to go in for a procedure that calls for an epidural or a spinal anesthesia. But the anesthesiologist, the initial one, he apologized to me. And I don't think you apologize to anybody if you don't feel like you've done something wrong. Or maybe he was just being nice because he knew that it hurt a lot and it caused me a lot of pain. So either way, I wasn't mad at him or anyone else. I was just glad it was over and that it was working. And so after all of that pain, they laid me down onto the table, the operating table, and there were like these two little boards for my arms, and of course the bed. I guess it was kind of wide from what I remember. Like I said, I specifically remember the table just being super high, and I guess that's just easier for the surgeons or doctors to perform the procedures. Let's go get our special guest. Hold on. All right, so we have our little special guest. He's awake. He started making noise in there, so he likes to be in the mix. He don't like to be by himself all the time. All right, so let's see. And he is a little noisy, so, you know, and I got cold. Anyway, like I said, they had the little things for my arms, and they draped the curtain. And then shortly after that, my husband walked in. And when I first saw my husband, y'all, the first thing I did was, like, I just started crying. Not like loud. Oh, I left that part out about the anesthesia. So somewhere in the middle, when things weren't going right, and it was right before my doctor, it was right before my doctor came over and everybody was just kind of wondering what was going wrong, I started crying. Like, I got scared and I was like, why isn't this working? And I just had a lot of thoughts like, is this gonna work? Am I going to be able to have this procedure safely? Is there something wrong with me? Like, why do the anesthesiologist kept mentioning something about the needles bending in my back and having to get another needle and another needle and another type of needle, and are saying a longer one. I'm like, a longer one in my back, my spine? Like, it was a lot, y'all. But I started crying. My doctor comforted me, and like I said, she helped try to get me through the procedure, well, that part of it. And eventually I stopped crying. I was trying to be so strong through the whole thing. I was pretty quiet. I wasn't like being super dramatic. I was just trying to get through it, and I was just trying to, you know, I was like, you know, not everything is easy, not everything is gonna be a cakewalk, and but it's gonna work out. So I was just trying to stay calm, and yeah, just trying to stay calm most of the time. But I'm pretty sure the doctors and the staff could see the worry on my face, and after a while I just could not keep it up, and I had to cry. And like, I wasn't like, I was crying and there were many tears falling out of my face, but I wasn't like super loud or anything, because I'm also just trying to keep myself calm, because I don't want to completely fall apart. Because yeah, I just didn't want to fall completely apart, and I wanted to try to be the best I could be so that we could get through this. So in essence, I guess I was trying to do my part, whatever that was, or whatever I felt like that part was. So yeah, so fast forward back to the point where I was at. My husband finally was able to come in, and I saw him and I immediately started tearing up again, just because I just wished that he was able to be there to hold my hand, or be the person that I was holding on to get through this pretty traumatic experience that had just happened. But after I saw him and I teared up a little bit, he asked if I was okay. I told him I was, and that, you know, we would talk about everything after, because now they're getting ready to cut me open. And so the anesthesiologist is spraying something like cold on me to test to see if the anesthesia is taking. And he asked me, like, can you feel that? I would tell him yes. And then eventually I couldn't feel it anymore, and I'm guessing that whatever cold stuff he was spraying on me was, what's wrong? Okay, so I'm guessing that it was super cold, because he was like, okay, I think it's working. And I was like, but I could still feel it. But my guess is maybe it was like supposed to hurt or something. I don't know. But eventually though, I couldn't feel the temp of it at all. I felt a slight sensation in the same place where he was spraying it, but eventually I couldn't feel it at all. And everything just got kind of like super heavy from my chest down. And a lot of people are like, so you shouldn't be able to feel pain, but you still will feel like tugging and pressure and stuff. Yeah, I barely felt a thing. My husband was sitting beside me. They're doing whatever they're doing. I can barely feel anything. The best way I can describe the feeling for me is that somebody had piled several heavy blankets over top of me, and then started to do stuff on top of all these heavy blankets on top of me. So I couldn't feel anything directly. It just felt like they were doing things over me and not on me, if that makes sense. Like, that's how little I felt. Even I didn't feel them necessarily pull him out. I didn't feel much pressure. I didn't feel any pain. Like, I didn't feel anything. So after all that, I'm certainly glad that the anesthesia did work. But one scary thing that was actually, the nurse reassured me that it was normal. Just looking at my notes to make sure I didn't miss everything while I'm telling this story. Yeah, one thing that did kind of alarm me was I started to feel very heavy in the chest. So heavy that I felt like that I was having a hard time breathing, but what I was feeling was the heaviness from the anesthesia, from the area that of my body that was heavy. So to compensate for that, I started to breathe in deeper because I didn't want to die, and that's just it. Hold on. All right, sorry, that was actually the hospital calling to check in on me. I guess they kind of do a 1 month check-in. So where was I? Okay, so yeah, I don't know where I left off, but this is where I think I left off at. So they, you know, I can't feel anything, and I can't feel cutting, I can't feel anything. But talking to my husband a little bit, he has our camera, which you saw, and our phone, and one of the nurses that was in the OR was helping us get some pictures, take pictures of us and everything. And before I knew it, Camden was out. Like, he was out. It was probably less than 5 minutes, this part of the procedure. Like, it was so fast. They're not kidding when they say it takes about 5 minutes to get the baby out. So anything over that is probably abnormal, or there's something else going on. But yeah, it was literally no time, and they had my baby out, and they put him on, like, near, well, where did they put him? They definitely put him in front of my face, and then they gave my husband him, and I was touching him from where my husband was. And then they you know, did all the things, weighed him, clean him off, and they may have done that before that. I don't know. Yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind in there, and like I said, it happened so fast. So while they once they took him away again to, like, finish doing everything they needed to do with him and do all of his checks, they were sewing me up. Initially, I thought that my husband was going to have to leave the room with the baby while they did this part, and I was warned that it could feel like it took a lot longer because it could take up to 30 minutes to stitch you back up. But honestly, I felt like that part went by pretty fast too. Between taking the pictures, talking to my husband, you know, all of those things, and them doing what they needed to do with the baby before he could even leave the room, they were, like, done. So when my husband and the baby left, I was, like, right behind them. So it didn't feel like it took that long at all, but it probably took about 30 minutes for them to finish stitching me up and everything. And yeah, so the rest of the C-section procedure was pretty flawless, I have to say. So clearly I was awake and alert the whole time. Bless you. Bless you. Clearly I was awake and alert the entire time. I didn't have to be put under, which was something else I was afraid would happen. I didn't want to have to be put under and miss the birth of my baby. One reason being, some people in emergency situations or whatever other situations end up having to be completely knocked out by anesthesia, and their babies are delivered, and then they wake up and they're like, where did this baby come from? Who is this? And they feel a bit disconnected from this human that they've been growing this whole time, all because they missed very vital moments and feelings of giving birth. And that was something else I was afraid of from having a C-section, period. Just having missed the bond being created by pushing the baby out. I just worried, and I didn't want to feel like anyway I was loving him any less or anything like that. And it's not like that at all, you guys. And even if you have trouble bonding initially after a C-section, it absolutely does get better from what I hear from others' experiences. I actually have a close relative that experienced that, and I mean, her son is the love of her life now, you know what I mean? So it is something that you can get through, although it's not ideal, you know what I mean? So yeah, have the baby, procedure's over, I'm stitched up, and I go back into the labor and delivery room to spend some time recovering.